thought that set my mind free. It usually starts around 3:17 a.m., that time when the world is so still you can hear your heartbeat echoing off the bedroom walls, and yet your mind sounds like a packed train station at rush hour. Thoughts, fears, regrets, predictions, all tangled like wires behind a broken TV. Did I say the wrong thing? What if she's upset? Why didn't I stand up for myself? What if I never feel okay again? You know the feeling. It doesn't knock. It just walks in and takes over. And here's the strange part. Even when you're exhausted, you keep feeding it. You run the same scenario for the 15th time. You Google symptoms. You rehearse arguments you'll never have. You bargain with the future. You try to outthink the fear. But anxiety doesn't respond to logic. It feeds on attachment, on the belief that you must control something, someone, anything. That's when I found it. Not a life hack, not a journal prompt, not a checklist, but a single, quiet, devastatingly simple Buddhist thought that cracked the cage open. Nothing is worth holding onto. At first, it almost felt cold, like giving up. But then something inside me whispered, maybe that's what peace actually feels like. Not numbness, not escape, but release. The unclenching of a fist I didn't know I'd been making my entire life. And that one thought, it didn't erase my anxiety, but it did something far more powerful. It dissolved the need to run from it. Part 1. Anxiety isn't the problem, clinging is. We're all familiar with anxiety, right? The constant hum of what-ifs, should-haves, and if-onlys. But here's the twist. Anxiety isn't the problem. It's actually a signal, a flashing red light telling you something deeper is at play. You see, anxiety isn't the issue. Clinging is. Let me explain. Buddhism teaches us that all suffering, and yes, anxiety is a form of suffering, comes from attachment. It's like holding on to something that no longer serves you, yet desperately refusing to let it go. Think of it like holding a hot coal in your hand, hoping it won't burn you. The coal is your fear, your worry, your obsessive thoughts. The moment you cling to it, you're the one getting burned. But here's where it gets tricky. The mind often doesn't want to let go. It clings because it believes it has control over the situation. It thinks that if you just think enough about that conversation, that missed opportunity, or that future event, somehow you can avoid the pain or regret. But all you're doing is adding layers of stress on top of an already heavy burden. Ever found yourself lying awake at night, obsessing over something someone said to you? Or worrying about an email you haven't yet sent, even though it's still 2 weeks away? That's clinging. The mind, in its own way, believes that staying up late thinking will somehow fix the situation. It won't. Buddhism has a word for this, upadana. It means attachment, the act of clinging to people, objects, or even thoughts. Upadana is like planting your feet firmly in quicksand. The more you cling, the more stuck you become. Take a moment and think about it. How often do we cling to old hurts, reliving them over and over? How often do we hang on to ideas of who we should be, of how we should act, of who we should please? You see, the problem isn't anxiety. It's the grip we have on the things that cause it. If we keep clinging, it's like trying to walk with a 50-pound weight on our shoulders. Anxiety starts to feel inevitable, but there's hope. When you begin to recognize clinging for what it is, an attachment to an outcome, an expectation, a future fear, you unlock the potential to release it. In other words, you stop holding on to the coal. It doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent to life's challenges. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you give yourself permission to let go of the need to control everything. And that's where peace begins. Part 2. The moment you let go, everything changes. There's this quiet moment, almost imperceptible, when you stop fighting your thoughts, when you stop wrestling with the panic and just breathe. And it's in that moment, that tiny space between resistance and surrender, that something extraordinary happens. You let go, and the world doesn't end. In fact, for the first time in a long time, it feels like it might just be beginning. But let's pause for a second, because letting go is one of those phrases that sounds poetic until life actually asks you to do it. When someone breaks your trust, when your plans collapse, when your health shifts, when uncertainty knocks and refuses to leave. Letting go doesn't feel brave in the moment. It feels like losing, like giving up, like walking away from control. But here's the truth Buddhism gently teaches. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Let me tell you a short story. Maybe you've heard it, maybe not, but stay with me. The monk and the glass. A monk once lifted a delicate drinking glass and said to his student, "I love this glass. It holds water beautifully. The sunlight reflects off it just so. When I tap it, it rings like a bell. But to me, this glass is already broken." The student looked confused. "If it's already broken, why love it?" The monk smiled. "Because when it shatters, and someday it will, I won't suffer. I've already let it go." That's the shift. It's not about detachment in the cold, emotionless way we sometimes imagine. It's about accepting impermanence so deeply that we can love freely, feel deeply, and live fully, without the constant fear of losing what we cling to. Now, apply that thought to your anxiety. What if you didn't have to solve every fear right now? What if you didn't have to hold every outcome in a death grip? What if, and just imagine this, you could feel the fear, acknowledge it, and still trust the unfolding? Because when you let go of needing to know, needing to fix, needing to protect yourself from every possible future, you create room for something else, inner silence. Not the absence of thoughts, that's nearly impossible, but the absence of urgency, the absence of panic. Like a lake that's been stirred for years, finally settling, the water clears. And this isn't just theory, it's lived. Try it. The next time your thoughts rush in, try saying to yourself, "I release this, I'm not holding this right now." And watch what happens. It won't fix everything, but it changes the air. The storm quiets, even if just for a few seconds. And that's where peace begins. Not in controlling the wind, but in loosening your grip on the sail. Part 3. You are not your thoughts. And that's a good thing. Let's do something strange for a moment. Just sit quietly, no pressure, no fancy posture, and watch your thoughts. Not think about your thoughts. Just watch them. You'll probably notice they come and go like clouds. Some are heavy and dark. Others are random, silly, even intrusive. They pop in, hang around, then float off, sometimes without warning. Now ask yourself, if thoughts are coming and going, who's noticing them? Because here's the most liberating truth Buddhist teachings offer. And once you get this, anxiety starts to unravel. You are not your thoughts. You're the one watching them. That voice in your head narrating everything from your morning coffee to your worst-case scenarios, that's not you. That's just your mind doing what it's been trained to do. Think, worry, analyze, predict. But you, the deeper you, are something quieter, more spacious, still. It's like sitting on the riverbank, watching thoughts float by like leaves. Some are fast, others slow. Some catch your eye, some you want to grab. But you're not the leaf. You're not even the river. You're the awareness watching it all. Sounds simple, but honestly, it's radical. Because the moment you see that, anxiety loses its grip. It might still show up, the racing heart, the tight chest, but it no longer defines you. You go from saying, "I am anxious," to, "There is anxiety." Subtle shift? Maybe, but it's everything. It's the difference between being stuck in a thunderstorm and watching it pass from under a roof. Same storm, less soaking. Here's a little exercise. Next time you feel a wave of anxiety, try saying, "There is fear, there is doubt, there is a storm in the mind." Don't say "my fear." Don't say "I am afraid." Just name it. as if you're noting it on a clipboard, like a scientist observing weather patterns. Ah, anxiety again. Hello. It might not go away instantly, but you'll notice something shift. It becomes less sticky, less you, and that gives you space. Space to breathe, space to pause, space to choose how you want to respond instead of being hijacked by a whirlwind of panic. Let's be real, no one taught us this growing up. We were taught how to multiply fractions, how to memorize capitals. But no one said, hey, by the way, thoughts aren't facts and feelings aren't commands. But now you know, and once you've seen the difference between the thought and the thinker, between anxiety and awareness, it's really hard to go back. You still have anxious days, of course you do. So do monks, therapists, even the guy teaching meditation on YouTube. But now you meet those days with a new power, the power of presence, not trying to fix, just observing, watching, knowing this too is just passing weather. And the more you practice that, the more distance you create between you and the storm. And that distance, that's where freedom lives. Part 4. One thought, one breath, one now. Anxiety has a favorite hiding spot. It's not in the dark corners of your room. It's not in your phone or your inbox, or even that one person who triggers you. It's in the future, always. Every anxious thought. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if they leave? It all lives in a time that hasn't happened yet. And here's the mind-bending part. The future doesn't exist. Not yet. Not ever, really. It's a mental movie playing inside your head. But the body, it doesn't know that. Your body hears those thoughts and tightens up. Your breath shortens, your stomach knots, your chest closes in. It's reacting as if your worst fear is happening right now, even though it's all happening up here, in the mind. So, how do we get out? One breath at a time. The return to now. In Buddhism, there's a practice called anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. It's not complicated. You don't need incense or mantras or special music, just awareness. You sit or stand or walk and gently place your attention on the breath. In, outside, in, outside. And when your thoughts try to pull you into next Tuesday, or back to that awkward thing you said in 2009, you just notice and return to the breath. That's it. No judgment. No, I'm doing it wrong. Just, oh, I wandered off. Let's come back. Let's be clear, your breath is not magical, but your awareness of it, that's a portal. It brings you back to the only moment you ever truly have. Now. Everyday mindfulness. You don't need to sit cross-legged for hours to practice this. You can do it while brushing your teeth, waiting at a red light, walking to your desk, holding your coffee mug, listening to someone talk. Yes, really, it's about being here, not there. So much of our anxiety is rooted in there, the place where something bad might happen, where someone might not understand us, where we might be exposed, hurt, or judged. But here, you're just breathing. Here, you're okay. You know what's wild? Even during a panic attack, if you can place 5% of your awareness on the breath, the spiral often begins to loosen. Not because you fixed anything, but because you remembered. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still alive. That's power. One thought, one breath, one now. Here's something gentle to carry with you. When anxiety strikes, try this simple mantra. One thought, one breath, one now. Say it slowly, even out loud if you need to. Let the rhythm of those words pull you out of the noise and back into your body. Because if anxiety lives in the future, then peace lives here, in this breath, in this moment. And the best part? You don't need to earn that peace. You don't have to be enlightened, perfect, or even calm to access it. You just have to be willing to return. Over and over again. Part 5. Practice isn't pretty, but it's the way. Let's be honest, it's easy to talk about mindfulness and letting go when you're reading in a quiet room, sipping tea, and your phone's on silent. But what about when life barges in like it always does? What about when your boss suddenly calls you out in a meeting? Or when someone you love misunderstands you again? Or when you wake up with that awful tightness in your chest for no reason at all? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the real practice, and you know what? It's not graceful, it's not clean, it's not always peaceful, but it's real, and it works. You don't build a fire by staring at wood. Here's a thought. Imagine you're in the forest. You've got a pile of dry sticks. You want warmth, so you light a spark. You blow gently. The wind fights you. Smoke stings your eyes. It goes out. You try again. You curse. You nearly give up. But eventually, it catches. A flame, then warmth. That's what practice looks like. Some days your breath anchors you. You feel calm, clear. Other days it feels like you've never meditated a second in your life. Your mind runs laps around your attempts at peace. And that's okay. The path is not about perfection. It's about persistence. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful word for this. Bhavana. Cultivation. It means you grow peace the way you grow a garden. Slowly, patiently, through the seasons. You plant seeds. You water them. You pull weeds. Sometimes they die. Sometimes they bloom. You don't quit the garden just because you had a bad day. Fall 7 times, return 8. You will forget to let go. You'll cling again. You'll obsess. You'll wake up in a panic, and that's not a failure. That's part of the path. Every time you notice your grip tightening, every time you remember to pause, breathe, soften, that's the practice. That's the win. Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield said it beautifully. After the ecstasy, the laundry. You might have a moment of stillness, insight, peace, and the next minute you're yelling at someone in traffic or doom scrolling your phone. It's not backsliding, it's just being human. And being human isn't the opposite of being spiritual, it's the whole point. The bamboo that bends. Want to know what real strength looks like? It's not being hard. It's not being rigid. It's not never feeling afraid. It's bending, just like bamboo in the wind. It sways, it dances, it moves with the storm, but it doesn't break. So maybe that's you. Maybe you're not someone who always feels calm, enlightened, or serene. Maybe you're someone who bends, who feels everything deeply, but doesn't snap. And that's strength in its purest form. So when it gets hard, and it will, remember, let go, come back, breathe, again and again and again. No fanfare, no perfect performance, just steady steps. That's the way through. Part 6. Real life doesn't cooperate, and that's the point. Let's be real for a second. It's one thing to talk about letting go and finding peace when things are stable. But what about when life flips the table? What about the job you lost without warning? Or the person who ghosted you after years of connection? Or the health scare that came out of nowhere? What about the moments when life feels like it's actively working against you? Here's where the old thinking creeps in again. If I just stay calm, bad things won't happen. But Buddhism offers a humbler, bolder truth. Peace isn't found in avoiding chaos. It's found in how you meet it. The waves don't stop, you learn to surf. There's a Zen saying, let the muddy water settle and the path becomes clear. But let's be honest, the water doesn't always settle on your schedule. Sometimes it's muddy for months. Sometimes it gets worse before it clears. And this is the part most of us struggle with. Life doesn't cooperate with your healing timeline. The people who hurt you may never apologize. The future may remain uncertain. The answers you crave might not show up when you need them most. But the real shift comes when you stop demanding life bend to your will, and instead learn to flow with it, like a river, like breath, like all things that know how to move forward without forcing. Non-resistance isn't weakness, it's power. Let's be clear, non-resistance doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean you become a doormat or stop caring. It means you stop adding suffering to the pain. You stop saying, this shouldn't be happening. I can't believe they did that. Why me? Why now? You replace that with a deep, grounded presence that whispers, "This is happening, and I can meet it with clarity." That shift doesn't solve every problem, but it changes you. You become less reactive, less panicked, more rooted. You stop trying to control every outcome and start showing up, raw, honest, aware, no matter what's unfolding. And guess what? That's where true strength lives, not in resisting what is, but in being fully with it. Emotional vulnerability is not a flaw. You know that trembling feeling in your chest, that ache behind your eyes, that lump in your throat when you're trying to hold it together? That's not weakness. That's what being alive feels like. Buddhist thought doesn't tell you to suppress that. It asks you to meet it with compassion, to stop labeling certain emotions as bad or broken, to let sadness be sadness, let anger be anger, let grief have its voice, without letting it define who you are. Because when you allow yourself to feel fully, without clinging, without pushing, the emotion passes through. You don't stay stuck. You soften, you move, you grow. And that, more than anything, is the heart of this one powerful Buddhist thought. Nothing is worth holding on to, not even the idea that life must always make sense, not even the fantasy of control, not even your own self-image. Part 7. A life without holding on. So, what happens when this thought, nothing is worth holding on to, isn't just something you read once or whisper to yourself on hard days, but something that becomes a part of how you live? What happens when it stops being a quote on your wall and starts becoming the lens through which you see the world? Something surprising happens, but not in the dramatic lightning strikes kind of way. It's quieter than that, more personal, more lasting. You start to feel light, not because your problems vanish, not because you never feel anxious again, but because you stop dragging the weight of everything around with you. You stop carrying what was never yours. You stop holding on to the things people said to you in anger years ago. You stop gripping every possible outcome as if your life depends on it. You stop rehearsing pain before it happens. You begin to experience what Buddhist monks call freedom in the moment. That means you can be sitting in traffic and not be tense. You can have uncertainty in your future and still feel grounded. You can make a mistake and not spiral into shame for days, because you're no longer clinging to the belief that life needs to be perfect for you to feel peace. That belief, gone, released, like a bird whose cage you forgot you were holding shut. What peace starts to feel like, you sleep deeper, you react less. You don't take things so personally. You notice beauty again in small things, steam rising from your tea, the way sunlight hits the floor, the sound of someone's laughter through a wall. You realize you've made space, not just in your schedule, but in your mind, in your body, in your breath, the kind of space where anxiety used to live. And that space, it's not empty. It's full of something else now. Clarity, trust, presence, a quiet joy that doesn't need a reason. This isn't the end, it's a return. So know, this one Buddhist thought won't erase every fear. It won't make your mind perfectly still or your heart perfectly calm forever, but it gives you something far more powerful, a way back, back to your center, back to your breath, back to this moment where peace is always waiting. And when anxiety knocks again, because it will, you'll know what to say. I don't need to hold this. This doesn't belong to me. Let go. Breathe. Return. Again and again and again. Final reflection. The mind will try to convince you that control equals safety, but the deeper truth, the truth Buddhism has whispered for over 2,500 years, is this. The more you let go, the more you come home to yourself, not the anxious version of you that's trying to fix, control, manage, predict, but the spacious, still, clear self that's always been underneath the noise. You don't have to become someone new. You just have to stop holding so tightly to who you think you are. That's the thought. That's the practice. That's the freedom. Like what you felt here. If this story touched something in you, if even one sentence helped you breathe a little deeper, I invite you to stay with us. Click like to let the algorithm know that content like this matters. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to keep receiving stories, practices, and truths that help you come home to your stillness. Because this path, it's not linear, it's not perfect, but if you're reading this, you're already walking it. And I promise, every step you take in presence is never wasted.